Chapter 1. They said Emily Hartley was beyond hope, that the machines humming softly around her were only delaying the inevitable, but Daniel Cross never believed in endings that came without a reason, especially not when the patient lying before him was the youngest self-made millionaire in the city, a woman whose name once dominated business headlines and charity galas, now reduced to a still figure beneath white hospital sheets, her breathing measured by a ventilator and her life balanced on numbers glowing on monitors. Daniel was young for a resident, younger still to be trusted with cases that carried the weight of reputation and legacy, and perhaps that was why he was assigned what others quietly called a maintenance duty, nothing heroic, nothing that could fail, just routine care for a woman in a coma that had lasted 6 months. Yet from the moment he stepped into her ICU room, he felt something shift inside him, a pressure in his chest that had nothing to do with medicine, and everything to do with the strange calm on her face, as if she were only resting between thoughts. Emily Hartley had built an empire from nothing, rising from a scholarship student to the CEO of a global tech firm before 30, and when a late-night car accident left her brain injured and unresponsive, the world mourned her as if she were already gone, investors moved on, board members whispered succession plans, and even her distant relatives hovered more like vultures than loved ones, waiting for legal certainty. Daniel knew none of this mattered in that moment as he prepared to change the bandage across her upper torso, a necessary procedure to prevent infection from surgical wounds left by earlier interventions, his hands steady, his voice soft even though he knew she could not hear him, because he spoke to all his patients, conscious or not, believing that dignity did not require awareness. He told her his name, explained what he was doing, apologized for the cold of the antiseptic, and as he gently removed the old dressing, he noticed something unusual, not alarming, just subtle. Her breathing pattern shifted slightly, a small irregularity that might have gone unnoticed by anyone else, but Daniel paused, watching the monitor, his training sharpening his instincts. The nurses in the background chatted quietly, accustomed to silence from the bed, and the machines resumed their steady rhythm, convincing him it was nothing, yet something compelled him to keep talking, to tell her about the rain outside, about how the city looked different from the ICU windows at dawn, about why he became a doctor, not for prestige, but because once, when he was a boy, his mother lay in a hospital bed just like this, and a young doctor spoke to her every day until she woke up, proving that hope could be as medicinal as any drug. As Daniel secured the fresh bandage, his fingers brushed the sensor pads on her skin, and that was when it happened, not dramatic, not sudden, but undeniable. The monitor emitted a brief alert, her heart rate spiked, and her fingers twitched, just once, but clearly, and the room seemed to freeze as Daniel leaned closer, calling her name instinctively, though he had never done so before. "Emily," he said, softly at first, then again with cautious urgency, and to the shock of everyone present, her eyelids fluttered, barely, like a curtain moved by a passing breeze. The nurses rushed forward, alarms were checked, vitals reassessed, and Daniel's calm cracked just enough to let disbelief show on his face, because comas did not simply end like this, not after 6 months, not without warning. And yet Emily's eyes opened a fraction more, unfocused, confused, but alive, undeniably alive. The next few minutes blurred into protocol and chaos, doctors summoned, scans ordered, explanations demanded, but Daniel stayed by her side, holding her hand when her grip tightened weakly around his fingers, grounding her in a world she was only beginning to return to. Word spread quickly through the hospital, then beyond it, and by evening, the news reached boardrooms and media outlets alike. Emily Hartley had woken up. But what no headline captured, what no report could quantify, was what happened when the room finally quieted again and Emily, exhausted, turned her head slightly toward Daniel and whispered, barely audible, "You talked to me. I heard you," a sentence that sent a chill through him deeper than any medical anomaly. Over the following days, as her recovery astonished neurologists and humbled skeptics, Emily asked for Daniel repeatedly, not because he had performed a miracle procedure, but because he had treated her like a person when she had nothing left to offer the world. And as fragments of memory returned, she spoke of hearing his voice in the dark, a tether that kept her from letting go, while Daniel struggled with the sudden attention, the interviews he refused, the praise he redirected toward the team, insisting that waking up was her strength, not his. Yet fate was not finished weaving their paths together, because Emily's return shook her empire to its core, exposing betrayals, power plays, and a truth she could no longer ignore, that while she had built everything around ambition, it was compassion that saved her. In a quiet moment weeks later, when she was strong enough to sit by the window, she asked Daniel why he stayed in a job that paid little and demanded everything, and he answered honestly, saying that moments like hers were why, moments that reminded him why life was worth fighting for even when it seemed silent. Emily smiled then, not the polished smile of a billionaire, but the genuine one of a woman reborn, and she promised him something, not wealth, not influence, but a chance to change lives beyond hospital walls, funding research, supporting young doctors, turning survival into purpose. This was not a love story born of glamour, but of humanity, not a miracle without explanation, but a reminder that sometimes, presence is power, and kindness can awaken even the deepest sleep. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can exist in the quietest rooms and that small actions can change destinies, then subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories that inspire, heal, and reveal the extraordinary hidden inside ordinary moments, because the next story might be the one that changes how you see the world.